Hey everyone, Chase Elleby from Williams Elleby coming to you today with our second video in our video series of 52 weeks of personal injury. And today we've got another great topic to discuss, and it's going to be how to deal with an insurance company after you've been involved in a car wreck. So Joel, what would be, I guess, the number one thing you would tell a potential client or anyone watching this video what to do in dealing with an insurance company once they've been involved with a wreck or in a wreck?
Don't do it. Call an attorney.
Right.
Beyond just calling your own insurance company and telling them that you are in a wreck, the next call really should be to a personal injury attorney if you're injured. But we're assuming, because this is a video series on personal injury,
Right.
that you were injured. So the first thing that I would tell you is give the insurance company the least amount of information possible, although you do have a duty to notify your insurance company that you've been in a wreck. However, an attorney can do that for you. So if you have to call your insurance company, you feel the need to, just let them know the basic facts of the wreck, and then start trying to find a personal injury attorney that fits your needs and your personality.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that briefly because we get so many clients that will call us many months, even a year or two or so after the wreck, and the first thing that they always say, and this is no joke, I'd say at least 95% of our clients, that they just didn't want to get a lawyer involved. They didn't want to have to deal with it. They're not, quote unquote, sue people. That's how most everyone is.
Yeah.
Okay. But I always tell them, I'm happy you're calling me now. And it would have been much better if you would have called me on this day, right after or shortly after, because there's a lot of things that need to be done on the front end that could really help protect you in the long run. A lot of times what happens, people will call me, like I said, 3, 4, 6 months, however long later, and they've already messed up their case for whatever reason. So it's very important, I think, for the first thing to do is to call a personal injury attorney. And a good, honest personal injury attorney is going to tell you what you need to hear, what you need to, not what you need to hear, but what you need to do rather, and how you need to handle it. And a lot of times it might not be, you don't need to talk to me yet, but here are things you need to be on the lookout for. Call me in a couple of weeks or a couple of months if it becomes more of an issue. Because that one 15, 20-minute phone call with, you or me can really, really save a lot of heartache later on down the road if it becomes a bigger issue and a bigger case, so to speak. So, yeah, I think that's very important.
Yeah, and I think, immediately after a wreck, lots of times, even though we're really talking about personal injury here, it's, as far as car wrecks goes, you're also going to be dealing with property damage. And I think it's important to know how to deal with a property damage adjuster as opposed to a bodily injury adjuster, because most of the time you're going to have at least 2 different people, maybe 3 different people assigned from the insurance company's perspective to handle your claim. You'll have a property damage adjuster, a bodily injury adjuster, and maybe even a medical payments adjuster. So I think real quick, if you were going to tell somebody, how do you deal with a property damage adjuster after a wreck? What's the number one piece of advice you would give?
Well, I think first it's important for people to understand that anytime you've been in a wreck, you have at minimum 2 claims, right? It's going to be your bodily injury claim and your property damage claim, which are handled completely separately, right? So if an insurance company wants to give you a $5,000 check for your car, 99% of the time that's not going to have any impact on your bodily injury claim. So I think that's important for people to understand on the front end. Secondly, with just property damage claims, it's just important really just to communicate with the adjuster, obviously one, where the car is, so they can go and pick it up. A lot of times, when you've been involved in a wreck, the car gets towed to a tow yard, and every minute it's sitting there, it's, accruing fees, storage fees, whatever it might be. So it's letting the insurance company know where the vehicle is and giving them permission to move the vehicle. A lot of people, they don't want to do anything. They don't want to talk to the insurance company and tell them what to do. It's fine to tell them to move the vehicle because they're going to move it over to Copart or some place that they store their own vehicles, and it's a lot cheaper for them. And also, too, you're doing your duty in mitigating the damages and expenses that are going to, ultimately be owed to you or owed to the provider because of the the person who caused the wreck. So that would be the first thing I would say is just let them go and inspect it and move the vehicle so they can get the process rolling on either figuring out whether it's going to be a total loss or whether to repair the vehicle.
Yeah, and I would just add one little thing to that, and that's if you believe it's going to be a total loss, then it would be in your best interest to go ahead and start shopping for a replacement vehicle as soon as possible. Because especially in today's market, 2022, where there's vehicle shortages and it's hard to find a reasonably priced vehicle, the insurance company only has to pay you fair market value of the vehicle that was destroyed. So, the two types of property damage claims that are the toughest lots of times for the person whose vehicle is totaled is someone who either has a brand new vehicle and just drove it off the lot and that depreciation is gone, or someone who has, say, a 20-year-old vehicle and it runs fine, they've taken care of it, and it's priceless to them because they don't have car payments and all that, but the fair market value may only be $3,000.
Right.
And as you know, good luck finding a reliable vehicle for $3,000 or $4,000 in today's market.
Right.
So if you believe it's going to be a total loss, then it's probably in your best interest to go ahead and start searching for a vehicle as soon as possible, because even if you have rental coverage, once you're paid for your vehicle, the insurance company is going to stop paying for that rental pretty fast.
Right. And then kind of taking it, shifting gears a little bit, you asked earlier about the property damage and the liability side. So with the liability side, it's very important if you're going to speak to the insurance company before you talk to a lawyer, which remember rule number one, call a lawyer first. But if you're going to do it, and talk to the insurance company yourself, be very careful about what you tell them. I've had horror stories where a client has essentially settled their case for what they thought was just an initial payment, only to find out later that it was for everything. A lot of times they'll get in a situation where the adjuster's talking fast, saying we'll give you X amount of dollars, this is for everything, and the client or potential client will hear that to think that, oh, it's just for everything right now because I might still be treating 3 months from now and then I'll send them the bills later. It doesn't work that way. So just be very careful in speaking with the insurance company, especially when they start making offers. It's almost never the case that they make you one offer only to make you subsequent offers later on down the road. They only want to pay you one time only. They're going to try to do it quick, and they're going to try to do it for less than what the fair market value or the fair value of your case is worth. So be very careful.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you a specific example. There was a young man that contacted us. I believe Progressive was the liability carrier. He was a college student, and he settled his case really quickly for $2,000 under the belief that Progressive would continue to pay his medical bills as they were accrued. After he racked up about $10,000 in medical bills, going to physical therapy and getting the treatment that he needed to get better, he came to us and said, Progressive says they won't pay anymore. I look at the documents and I said, man, I'm sorry, but you settled your case, you signed on the dotted line, and your case was done for $2,000. There's nothing I can do for you. So you got to be very careful about that. And also, when you're talking to an insurance company about your bodily injuries, I think it is vital to not minimize your injuries. Now, you're never wanting to exaggerate, try to make it sound worse than it is, but the truth is that early on after a wreck, you may not know how bad you're hurt. You don't know how much medical treatment you're going to need to get better. So if you tell the adjuster, I'm a little sore, I'll be fine, they're going to put that in their computer system, and it doesn't matter what adjuster sees it for the next 10 years, they're going to look at it and go, mild injuries, and that equates to mild settlement for them.
And you also have to keep in mind when speaking to the insurance company, and the good adjusters are going to be your friends, right? They're going to call you up and say, oh, Susan, I'm so sorry you're right. Tell me what happened. Tell me what's bothering you. What are your injuries? And it's almost always people's instinct saying, I'm fine. No trouble. Don't worry about it. I'm just banged up. I'm bruised up. I'll be fine. Rub dirt on it and be on my way. Which that's what, most people say that anyway. But if you say that to an insurance company or adjuster or whatever it might be, they're going to take that and say, oh, they're fine. It's just, a bump, a scratch, a bruise. And, 3-4 months later down the road, you end up needing, that shoulder surgery because it's no longer fine. They're going to say, well, I'm so sorry, Susan. You told me when we talked that you were fine. It was just a bump and bruise. So, going back to your point, definitely don't exaggerate, but be honest about what it is that's bothering you, because you're not inconveniencing that person and just conveying the information about what your injuries are. So that's very important.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember, just like our job as personal injury attorneys, part of our job is to get you as much as possible, as much compensation as possible for your injuries and the damages that you've suffered. The insurance company's adjuster is exactly the opposite. Their job is to pay you the smallest amount possible to make you go away. One thing that a lot of people don't know about insurance companies, especially for larger claims, is they set reserves on the case. So if you've got an injury and they believe that your case may be worth, $1 million if you go to trial, then they're going to set that reserve at $1 million or maybe slightly under that. And the adjuster's job is to settle your case for as far below that number as possible. And if the insurance company sets a reserve at $1 million and the adjuster settles your case for $500,000, guess who's probably getting a good Christmas bonus that year? It's going to be the adjuster or a promotion or something like that, because they just saved the company $500,000. So you don't want to settle your case, at least in my opinion, except in very rare circumstances, until you know the full extent of your injuries. Now, if there's a minimum limits policy and there's $25,000 out there and you've got $100,000 in medical bills, it's probably going to be in your best interest to use Georgia's laws that can be explained to you by a personal injury attorney to give the at-fault insurance company a chance to settle the case within the insurance limits. And then if they don't do that, they can get themselves in some hot water. But you always want to talk to an attorney before you decide to go down that route.
Right. And the moral of the story at the end of the day is that you've been in a wreck. The best thing you can do is just to call an attorney, speak with them, get some initial information. Just by calling an attorney doesn't mean hire an attorney. And a lot of times, we said early on, we'll tell them you don't need us, but it's very important just to call first, and then just be very careful when dealing with insurance companies. So.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah.
And you also have to be careful, even if you're talking to a property damage adjuster. I have a situation right now where the client is talking to the property damage adjuster. I have no idea what the client told that property damage adjuster, but the property damage adjuster sent him an email that says, "Mr. Insert Name, I'm glad to hear that you weren't hurt in this wreck." So somehow or another, in the insurance company's files, it was put in there that the guy wasn't hurt.
Right.
He's clearly hurt. He went to the emergency room, they did scans on him, he's doing physical therapy. The man is hurt, but now in the insurance company's files, it says he's not hurt.
Right, because it goes back to the, oh, how are you doing? Oh, I'm fine. So they followed up with, oh, glad to hear you're not hurt. So,
that's right. So you just have to remember that every word you say to an insurance adjuster is probably going to be recorded, or at a minimum, it's going to be notated in a file within a claim number, and it's going to last forever. So do yourself a favor, be careful what you say to the insurance company's adjuster, and above all, get in touch with a personal injury attorney or more than one. Interview until you find one that you're comfortable with before you get too in-depth with an adjuster.
Yeah.
Any other tips or tricks we're talking about insurance adjusters?
No, I think that's it. I think we've covered a lot. So.
Okay. Well, that does it for week 2 of our 52 weeks of personal injury. If this video was helpful to you, we appreciate you subscribing to the page and hitting that notification button so you'll know when our subsequent videos come out. And like the video, comment, all of the stuff that YouTubers tell you to do. Please do that for us, and we will see you next week for topic number 3.